What is the Shema, and is it asserting monotheism? Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion, and the word Shema can refer either to a couple of verses within Deuteronomy 6, starting in verse 4, or it can be a reference to a traditional Jewish prayer that draws from these passages in Deuteronomy 6, as well as passages from Deuteronomy 11 and Numbers 15. But the word Shema is an imperative, a command. It means listen or hear. And this is how Deuteronomy 6:4 begins. In the Hebrew, verse 4 says, Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And when trying to interpret what's going on here, Adonai Eloheinu means Adonai, our God, or our God Adonai. It is using an adjective to qualify Adonai. And then the second part, Adonai Echad, is a predication. Adonai is one, so it's a clause, an X is Y clause. And there are a few things to note about this in relation to the widespread and traditional view of Deuteronomy 6:4 as the foundational Jewish declaration of monotheism. The first is that the word Eloheinu, which means our God, presupposes the existence of other gods because it's using the noun Elohim in the generic sense of a deity, a God. Which God? The one that pertains to us, the God of us, not any other God. So it's presupposing the existence of other gods, and it is identifying Adonai as the one that pertains to us. And then the second part, Adonai Echad, Adonai is one, is not saying there's only one God. It is saying there's only one Adonai. And what exactly does that mean? Well, this is debated. There are some scholars who think that this is a reference to mono-Yahwism. So Deuteronomy 6:4 would have been part of the earliest layer of the original book of Deuteronomy, which was probably composed under the reign of Josiah toward the end of the 7th century BCE, where there would have been a number of different cult sites dedicated to Adonai. And so this might be a part of Josiah's cult centralization of worship in the temple in Jerusalem. So rather than making reference to the Adonai that is manifested at Teman or Shomron, very similar to the idea of the Virgin of Guadalupe or the Virgin of some other location, maybe Deuteronomy 6:4 is saying, no, there's only one manifestation of Adonai. Adonai is one, and it's the Adonai that manifests themselves at the temple in Jerusalem. So that is one theory of what's going on here. But it's not asserting monotheism. That is a post-biblical, theological and philosophical innovation. But I think there's a better reading of what's going on here. If we look carefully at what it means to say Adonai is one in the context of the composition of Deuteronomy, what it most likely means is Adonai is the only one for you. In other words, it's demanding an exclusive relationship, a relational priority. And there are a couple of different lines of evidence that indicate this. To begin, Deuteronomy's idea of covenantal love between Adonai and the people of Israel is drawing from the vassal treaties of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, and particularly those of emperors like Esarhaddon and Ashurbanipal, which frequently demand an exclusive love, which is how it's talking about dedication to the sovereign. The vassals are subordinated to the sovereign who is superior, and these treaties frequently demand exclusive love or exclusive dedication. And it uses the language that we find in Deuteronomy, including of the idea of love. That's what we have in the very next verse, Deuteronomy 6:5. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your might, with all your soul. And so it's drawing from these vassal treaties that are all about saying, I am your superior, you are going to be dedicated to me, you're not going to be dedicated to anyone else. It's not an assertion that no other empires exist or no other sovereigns exist. It is a demand that you be dedicated only to this one sovereign. And there are other passages in the Hebrew Bible that lend further support to this interpretation of what's going on in Deuteronomy 6:4. For instance, in the Song of Songs, the lover sings about his dove and his perfect one and says she is achat, one. This does not mean she's the only young woman out there. In fact, this comes right after a passage that talks about how he doesn't care about all of the other women that are out there. And so, my dove, my perfect one, is one, is an assertion that she is the only one for him, not the only one that exists. And then the passage goes on to say she is one to her mother, the favorite one of the one who bore her. And some folks might interpret this as saying, oh, she's the only child of her mother. But there are a lot of scholars who suggest, no, the fact that she is identified as the favored one indicates just that it's the same kind of relational priority. She's her favorite child. She is the one she cares the most about. You are the only one for me, in the sense of you are my favorite child. And so both of the clauses, in relation to the lover, in relation to the mother, support this interpretation of identifying someone as echad in the masculine or achat in the feminine as one is an assertion that they are the only one for me, the only one I care about. They are the preferred one. And so Deuteronomy 6:4, in saying that Adonai is one, is saying Adonai is the only one for you. This is exclusivity in relationship, not in existence. It's about a relational priority. And for a wonderful discussion of the scholarship and the history of the interpretation of the Shema, I would recommend Nathan MacDonald's book, Deuteronomy and the Meaning of Monotheism, originally published in 2003. There was a second edition that was published about 10 years later. And chapter 2 is all about the Shema. And I want to point to the summary of this chapter on page 95 in the red box. The significance of the Shema, Deuteronomy 6:4-9, is strongly indicated by a number of factors, including its place in the structure of Deuteronomy and its emphatic call for wholehearted devotion. Its opening lines make a declaration that Adonai is one. As the following verse indicates, this has personal and relational import. Adonai is the only God for Israel. They are to have no others. This may be viewed as a positive restatement of the first commandment. Both Deuteronomy 6:4 and the first commandment assume the existence of other gods, and that they present a genuine temptation to Israel. The Shema's relational claim on Israel is further supported by consideration of Deuteronomy 4:35, 39, and 32:39. The exact role of these verses in Deuteronomy 4 and the Song of Moses has not been fully explored. Instead, a more limited task has been undertaken to determine whether they excluded the existence of other gods. Though some have argued that they do, I have argued that this is not necessarily the case. And there are a lot of scholars who agree with Nathan here, including, for instance, Michael Heiser. And I have got a paper that will be coming out in an edited volume next year, lending further support to that argument. Rather, they are best understood as making the same sorts of claim upon Israel, the people of Adonai, as is found in the Shema. In other words, that Adonai is the only one for Israel. It's not saying Adonai is the only God that exists. It is demanding this exclusive relationship. So it is not an assertion of monotheism. That would be a post-biblical theological innovation. It is a demand for an exclusive relationship between the sovereign and the vassal, based on the way the word echad or achat is used in the Hebrew Bible, based on the fact that Deuteronomy is drawing from the vassal treaties of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, based on the fact that the existence of other gods is recognized from beginning to end in the Hebrew Bible and is even recognized in the New Testament, as, by the way, Nathan MacDonald also discusses in this chapter of his book, Deuteronomy and the Meaning of Monotheism. So no, the Shema is not asserting monotheism. It is demanding an exclusive relationship between Adonai and the people of Adonai. And the fit for this video has been Frog and Toad.